If you ever find yourself completely alone in a giant retail store after midnight, pay attention to the people who seem to appear everywhere you go. Because sometimes they aren't shopping. Sometimes they're watching. My name is Samantha. I was 20 years old when this happened, and at the time, I worked overnight shifts at a Walmart near the small town of Jackson, Alabama. Back then, the store stayed open 24 hours a day, which meant customers could wander through the aisles at any hour of the night. Most people imagine overnight retail work as chaotic, but ours was usually the opposite. Once midnight approached, the store transformed into something strangely empty. The bright fluorescent lights stayed on. The music continued playing overhead, and the shelves stretched endlessly into the distance, but the people disappeared. That particular shift started at 10 p.m. I was one of only a few stock workers scheduled that night. A couple of cashiers worked near the front registers, and everyone else was scattered throughout the enormous building. In a store that size, you could work an entire shift without seeing another employee. For the first few hours, I was assigned to the men's clothing department. I folded jeans, organized racks, and straightened displays while listening to music through my headphones. Nobody usually bothered me about it during overnight shifts. Around 11:30 p.m., a customer approached me. At first, there was nothing unusual about him. He held up a pair of jeans and asked politely if we had the same style available in a different waist size. I checked the display and shook my head. Sorry, I told him. Everything we have should be out here already. Okay, thank you. His voice was calm, normal. He returned the jeans to the rack, and for a brief moment, our eyes met. The interaction lasted less than a minute. Nothing about it stood out. He walked away, and I immediately forgot about him. At least, I thought I had. As midnight passed, the store emptied even further. The silence grew heavier between the distant hum of refrigeration units and the occasional squeak of shopping cart wheels somewhere far away. The building felt enormous. Too enormous. And before the night was over, I would realize that customer hadn't forgotten about me at all. By around 1 in the morning, I had moved from clothing to the appliance department. The store felt almost abandoned. Rows of coffee makers, microwaves, and kitchen appliances sat beneath harsh fluorescent lights that seemed brighter the fewer people remained inside the building. I was making repeated trips to the stockroom, loading boxes onto a wagon and bringing them out to refill shelves. It was routine work, mindless work, the kind of work that lets your thoughts drift. I was stocking coffee machines when something caught my attention through a nearby aisle. Someone was standing there, watching me. At first, I only saw the movement of a head turning away. Then I noticed the eyes. The instant he realized I'd seen him, he looked elsewhere. But those eyes looked familiar. I stepped slightly closer and looked between the shelves. My stomach tightened. It was the same customer from the jeans section. The same man from nearly 2 hours earlier. That realization bothered me immediately. Not because customers stayed late sometimes, but because he was still empty-handed. Trying not to appear suspicious, I pushed my wagon past the neighboring aisle and glanced toward him. Nothing. No shopping basket. No cart. No merchandise. Not a single item. Just him, standing there. A person doesn't wander a Walmart for 2 hours without picking up anything unless they're looking for something very specific. Or someone. I suddenly became aware of how alone I was. The nearest employee could have been several departments away. The aisles stretched endlessly in every direction. And that man seemed far more interested in me than anything the store was selling. I finished stocking as quickly as possible and headed back to the employee area. Once inside, I sat in the lounge and stared at my phone for a while, pretending to relax. But my attention kept drifting back to that customer. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe he was harmless. Maybe there was some perfectly reasonable explanation. Still, the feeling wouldn't go away. That uncomfortable sense that someone had been watching me much longer than I'd realized. After a break, I decided to change departments entirely. If I moved to grocery and dairy, maybe I'd stop thinking about it. Maybe I'd leave that strange encounter behind. Instead, I unknowingly walked straight into the most frightening moment of my life. The dairy cooler sat in the back portion of the grocery section. It was one of the coldest places in the building. Large industrial refrigerators roared constantly, filling the room with a deep mechanical hum that drowned out almost every other sound. I began loading crates with milk, yogurt, and other dairy products. The process took time because expiration dates had to be checked carefully. For a while, I became focused on the task. The strange customer faded from my mind. Then suddenly, the cooler door burst open. The sound cut through the noise of the refrigeration units. I looked up instinctively. A stack of boxes on a nearby pallet had a narrow gap between them, giving me a clear view of the entrance. I peered through it and immediately froze. The customer stood in the doorway. My heart dropped. There was no reason for him to be there. Customers weren't supposed to enter employee-only areas. Certainly not the dairy cooler. For a split second, neither of us moved. Then instinct took over. I crouched beneath a shelving unit and pulled myself behind a large box of eggs. The refrigerators were loud enough to cover any small sounds I made. As I hid, one thought kept repeating in my head. He's looking for me. Not products. Not help. Me. The realization felt terrifyingly obvious now. Why else would he spend hours wandering the store? Why else would he suddenly appear in an employee-only cooler? I tucked my knees against my chest and stayed completely still. Seconds dragged by, then minutes. The cold seeped through my clothes. The constant drone of machinery filled my ears. I waited for the cooler door to open and close. I waited to hear footsteps leaving. I waited for some sign that he had given up. Nothing happened. Just silence beneath the mechanical roar. My neck began to ache from staying in the same position. Eventually, I convinced myself he must have left. Maybe he looked around and couldn't find me. Maybe the danger had passed. Slowly, I raised my head from my arms. I looked over the edge of the box and instantly screamed. Because he wasn't gone. He was standing directly in front of me, smiling. The scream erupted before I could stop it. The man's smile disappeared immediately. For a brief moment, his expression changed from amusement to panic. Then he lunged forward. I saw his hand moving toward my face. He tried pressing it over my mouth, trying to silence me, trying to stop the scream from reaching anyone outside the cooler. That single action erased any remaining doubt in my mind. Whatever excuse he might have had, whatever explanation he might later invent, normal people do not cover a stranger's mouth in an isolated employee area at 2 in the morning. Adrenaline took over. I shoved the large box of eggs directly into him. The cardboard struck his legs. Eggs exploded across the concrete floor. The sudden crash echoed through the cooler. The man stumbled backward and glanced down instinctively as yolks splattered across his shoes. That hesitation gave me exactly what I needed. An opening. I sprinted. Past him. Past the broken eggs. Past the shelves and pallets. Through the cooler door. I expected fingers to grab my arm. I expected footsteps chasing me. But they never came. I ran through the grocery department and didn't stop until I found another employee stocking shelves. His name tag read Bob. I barely knew him. It didn't matter. "Help me," I gasped. "There's a guy back there." Bob looked confused as I hurriedly explained what had happened. Before either of us could react further, the man appeared. He walked toward us calmly, almost casually, as though nothing unusual had happened. Then he smiled and apologized. According to him, everything was a misunderstanding. He claimed he worked for corporate. He said he was conducting an inspection and making sure employees were working properly. He insisted he hadn't meant to scare me. Bob seemed to accept the explanation almost immediately. I couldn't believe it. My hands were still shaking. My heart was pounding. And this stranger expected me to believe he was some corporate representative conducting secret inspections inside a dairy cooler at 2 in the morning? Then I asked the question that had been screaming inside my head. "If you're corporate, why did you put your hand over my mouth?" For a second, he hesitated. Then he answered, "I was trying to avoid making a scene." The response sounded ridiculous. And deep down, I think he knew it. The conversation became stranger from there. The man suddenly started acting as though he had authority, as though he actually belonged there, as though he hadn't just cornered me inside an employee-only cooler. He casually instructed me to finish stocking the appliance section. Then he turned and began walking away. Not running, not rushing, just speed walking down the aisle, like someone trying very hard to appear normal. I watched him disappear between shelves. Then I called after him, "What's your name?" Without turning around, he answered, "Tom," and then he was gone. The rest of the shift felt endless. Every aisle seemed darker. Every distant movement made me tense. Every customer looked suspicious. When morning finally arrived, I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. The explanation didn't make sense. None of it did. So the next day, I contacted one of the managers, Margaret. I explained everything from the beginning. The customer, the watching, the dairy cooler, the claim about corporate, the name Tom. Margaret's reaction was immediate. She told me the story sounded completely false. Not my story. His. There were no scheduled corporate visits, no overnight inspections, no employee named Tom from corporate, and absolutely no reason a legitimate representative would be wandering around the store at 2 in the morning. Management reviewed the security footage. What they discovered confirmed my worst fears. The cameras showed the man repeatedly following me through the store. For hours, moving between aisles, watching from a distance, appearing wherever I happened to be working. He wasn't shopping. He wasn't inspecting. He was stalking me. A police report was filed after management realized he was simply a random man who had spent a significant portion of the night tracking my movements through the store. Even now, years later, that detail unsettles me most. Not the cooler, not the fake corporate story, not even the hand over my mouth. It's the fact that he spent hours quietly observing me before I ever realized something was wrong. After that incident, I told Margaret I couldn't work overnight shifts anymore. Thankfully, she understood. I still work at Walmart today, but only during daytime hours, usually stocking shelves or working as a cashier. And whenever I see someone lingering too long in an aisle, watching instead of shopping, I remember that night. Because sometimes the most frightening people aren't hiding in the dark. They're standing right there under the brightest lights in the building.